Welcome back to my spring adventures in the southeast of England. So far in this series, I've visited Scotney Castle and learnt about its hops farming industry, wandered through the stunning gardens of Nymans, and hiked through the Kent countryside from Knowles Deer Park to a moated house so old it is difficult to comprehend. Today, I'll be going for a solo hike in the Surrey Hills. Good morning and welcome to Box Hill. It's my Easter holidays and it's Friday at the moment, but most of the people that I know are all at work, and so I've decided to come down to Box Hill to do a solo hike. I've already been messed around for a little bit because Google Maps is great, it's very accurate, and it told me that there was a car park down at the bottom of the hill, and I thought, well, great, I'll park there. That allows me to start the hike with the arduous walk up the hill, get the rewards of the beautiful views at the top, and then at the end I can have the easy hike back down to the car. But it turns out that there was no car park down at the bottom of the hill, so I spent a good sort of 20-25 minutes or so looking for a car park that didn't exist before giving up and then driving up to the top of Box Hill. Parked in the National Trust car park because I can park for free as a member. It just means that I will have that slog up the hill at the very end. I have chosen to come here today because the weather is rather beautiful and the forecast is terrible for this weekend. So I'd just like to make the most of this spring weather during my Easter holidays whilst I can. I headed for the Salomon's Viewpoint, named in memory of Leopold Salmons, who gave the 230 acres of Box Hill to the National Trust in 1914. Whilst admiring the view, I spotted what I assume was a bird of prey. If you think you know what type of bird it was, please do let me know in the comments, as I'm stumped. So I'm going to start off by doing the Riverside Walk, in part because it's got a picture of a kingfisher on the front, and if I can come across another kingfisher today, it would make me very happy. The National Trust's leaflet says that it's a 3-mile circular walk which follows the glorious stretch of the River Mole, as well as taking you through rare grasslands and ancient woodlands. Now, I think rather than looping all the way back up, when we get to point 7 of 8 on this particular walk, I can then cross over onto the Stepping Stones walk, and I think the Stepping Stones is what Box Hill is quite well known for. So that is my plan, but obviously we'll just see how I go and how arduous this is. Now down to the point on the trail where we meet with the River Mole. With all of these low-hanging branches of the mature trees, I was hoping that I might have been able to spot a kingfisher, perhaps looking for its dinner, but no such luck so far. I was really fortunate last autumn when we were going on the Wandle Trail walk to spot a kingfisher, and it was just wonderful getting to watch it as it peered down into the water looking for fish. I'll keep my eye out because I think we need to follow this river now for a short while, hence why this part is called the River Walk. I've taken just a short detour off of the Riverside Trail, and that's because I've come to a really beautiful mill. And up until the early 20th century, the River Mole was home to lots of mills, because if you put the water wheels and the flow of the river would turn those water wheels, it would then create power. And the mills along here were predominantly used for grinding corn, or alternatively I think it was called fulling, and that's basically where they'd be used to wash materials, and specifically around here to wash wool. These spring mornings are starting out really chilly, and then as soon as they start to heat up a little bit and I get walking and the blood gets pumping, it's just getting a bit too much, and I think the coat is now going to have to go away in the bag, and it's just going to allow for me to have a slightly more pleasant walk, especially when I've got to go back up that hill. I'm wondering if I might even be down to t-shirt weather at that point. This afternoon I think the weather forecast was saying it is supposed to cloud over just a smidgen, so hopefully, though, the weather forecast is a little bit wrong, because also it did say that at 9 o'clock this morning it was going to be cloudy, but when I arrived at 9 o'clock, well, just after 9 o'clock because of the whole disaster of trying to find the car park, it was not cloudy. In fact, actually I'd say that there were less clouds at 9 o'clock than what there are right now, so fingers crossed the weather forecast is wrong. But anyway, I need to get this into the bag, otherwise it's going to make hiking, carrying it, to be rather annoying. Much better. These cylinders were built in 1940 as part of an anti-invasion scheme. Back then it was believed there was going to be an invasion up to London and that it would come through this way. I'm not entirely sure though what this would have achieved or what it would have been able to stop. I don't know if it was maybe something for our soldiers to perhaps hide behind. The river trail took me past an Type 24 infantry shell-proof pillbox, and it would have been used in the Second World War. Unfortunately, just as I turned up, I got one quick shot of it, and then a small group of teenagers turned up, climbed up onto it, and I heard one of them say, "Oh, this seems like a great place to stop," and they took out the speakers, so I don't think that they're moving for a little bit. It turns out that there is actually a car park down at the stepping stones, and I just had absolutely no way of being able to find it. I drove up and down the main road, I think it's like the A24, a couple of times trying to find it. I've actually just wandered out to the entrance of the car park to get my bearings so that when I come back in future times I'll actually know where it is, but I've made a mental note that it's where the bus stop is. I kind of hoped to come down to the stepping stones first thing because I thought it was going to be the most popular part, and just as I'm approaching them now the crowds are quite busy, but I've already come across the stepping stones. I think I just got really lucky at the time that I arrived because no one was wanting to use them. Whilst on this walk I'm learning that the river mole's name has a bit of a disputed history behind it. Some people believe that it's named after the mole that burrows underground because parts of this river do actually flow underground. Another theory is that it's named after the Roman word for mill, which is mola, and that again might be because of the mills that were along the River Mole 100, 150, 200 years ago. And then a final theory is that this river joins the River Thames at a place called Molesley. So some people are wondering if the river was perhaps named after the town of Molesley, or is it that the town of Molesley was named after the River Mole? There's many different theories, I'm not too sure which one's true. And now the uphill walk has begun. I feel like maybe I should have stopped down at the bottom to have a little bit of a snack for a bit of sustenance, but if I'm feeling a bit too exhausted before I manage to reach the top, I might stop halfway up because I'm assuming that the views up here, even if it's just halfway up, are probably going to be a lot better than what they were on the flat of the valley. Being able to go without food didn't last very long. My tummy is full on, it started rumbling on the way up, so I'm just going to stop here, admire this beautiful view whilst just having a little bit of a snack. I think the only downside to this view is just the A24 is very prominent and there is the constant roar of traffic, but I think if you push that to one side, it's a stunning view. So as far as hikes go, I feel like this has been quite a successful solo hike, the first one in a very, very long time. I have to say that as a kid, I wasn't really into hiking. I think the first hike that I went on was over in the States, and even then I probably wouldn't have classed it as being a hike. It was more of an amble through Badlands National Park in South Dakota. Shortly after that, we moved a little further west to Yellowstone, did a couple more ambles, and after Yellowstone we headed north to Glacier National Park, and that is where I did my first epic hike that really introduced me into it. Now, of course, being introduced to hiking over in the States, solo hiking is a lot more scary because you've got things like bears and coyotes and mountain lions, and obviously I've not had to worry about any of that today. And to be honest, even if we did have them in this area, I don't think it would have been too problematic because it's been very, very busy. The river trail was definitely less busy than the Stepping Stones trail, and having come back up to the top where the car park is, it's absolutely rammed. We've got cars sort of circling around trying to find parking spaces. So I think I'm gonna wrap this up, give my space to someone else and head back home. In the next episode, I'll be headed back towards Kent for a day of two halves. The morning will be spent exploring the grounds of Chartwell, the home of one of the 20th century's greatest world leaders, Winston Churchill, whilst the afternoon will be spent exploring the gardens and Bluebell Woods at Emmett's Garden. If you've not done so already, please consider subscribing to my channel so that you can join me in my South East England adventures.